Good morning, boys and girls. Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020, Chapter 12, The Boxcar Children Beginning by Patricia McLaughlin. Let's start right off with a happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. We are remembering, Miss Thompson is helping me with all my behind the scenes. Chapter 11, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020, Lights, Camera, Action. Eyes on the smartboard, reading with me. Boxcar, and more boxcar. Just show me the boxcar. Moving into our a farm visit poem by Betsy Franco. A lot of you probably already have this one memorized, but I need to still see your eyes on the smartboard working on our fluency. My class went to a farm one day. We touched the soft brown cow. We saw where all the milk came from. I understand it now. We stroked a chicken's feathers and we touched a muddy pig. Her hairs were like a bristly brush. Her eyes weren't very big. We watched the goats butt heads and put their hooves up on the wall. A little baby lamb was with her mama in a stall. We ate some carrots from the ground, a fresh and healthy snack. That farm was really neat. I hope my class and I go back. Text to self, thinking about our poem, we took a field trip last year to the creamery in Aden, and we actually got to see some of these things that you would see if you took a field trip to a farm. The reason I picked this poem for the Boxcar Children Beginning is because the Boxcar Children Beginning takes place on a farm, Fair Meadow Farm. So think about our field trip last year that we took to the creamery. Summarizing hokey pokey. Summarizing is a skill you're going to be working on for the rest of your life. So in first grade, we're doing a lot of our summarizing together. As you get older, you're going to be having to summarize by yourselves after you read a book or a chapter. So hopefully this summarizing hokey pokey will stick in your brain, and it will help you as you get older move into more independent summarizing. Summarizing hokey pokey. You put the big ideas in, you take the extras out, you put the essentials in, and you cross the repeats out. You do some summarizing and write the paragraph now. That's what it's all about, summarizing. Now we're going to go back and we're going to review Chapter 11, which we did yesterday on Tuesday. So let's go back to our T11. I had to make a little correction because in Chapter 11, we learned that it was summer and school had just gotten out for the summer. I think earlier in the book, I told you as a reader, I was inferring the kids were not in school because it was summer vacation, but summer vacation didn't actually come until Chapter 11. So I'm thinking back earlier in the book, instead of summer vacation, that may have been their spring break like we enjoyed last week. We made our prediction for Chapter 11. Now let's go back and summarize Chapter 11. This is the chapter that we read yesterday. I need you reading with me, working on our fluency. As the summer continued, other families who had hard times stayed with and near the Aldens. Millie and Matt stayed with the Aldens until baby Thomas was born. The Aldens received a letter from the Clarks letting them know they were living in their new home with their aunt and grandfather. Benny wished to be able to visit his grandfather. Hearing Meg and William talk about living with their grandfather made Benny wish he could visit his grandfather. AT11, another title for chapter 11, my class came up with last year, is More Hard Times. Now we're going to look at our key ideas from chapter 11. Our key ideas are our big ideas, or my big things that happen in chapter 11. I need you reading these with me, starting with bullet 1. Everything seems slow and quiet at Fairmeadow Farm. Bullet 2, school ended for the summer. Bullet 3, other families who were having hard times because they had lost their jobs and houses stayed at the Alden farm. Bullet 4, Matt and Millie had baby Thomas at the Alden farm. Bullet 5, the Aldens received a letter from William and Meg. They had arrived at their new home and were living with their aunt and grandfather. Bullet 6, Benny wished he had a grandfather to visit. He also wished he had a dog of his own. So in chapter 11, everything was slow and quiet. The kids are out of school for the summer. Other families having hard times stayed at the Alden farm. Something kind of exciting, there actually was a baby that was born at the Alden farm, baby Thomas. The Aldens received a letter from William and Meg, and they were at their new home with their aunt and grandfather. And of course, Benny makes some wishes. He wished he had a grandfather to visit, and he also wished he had a dog. Moving into chapter 12, which is our chapter for today. We're going to start with I forgot to do our AT11. I don't think I did this. I can't remember if I did this yesterday. AT11, another title for chapter 11. Remember, when you're with me here at school, you help remind me if I forget something or I leave out something. Maybe last year we came up with 2 AT11s, More Hard Times and The Note. So we did do AT11 yesterday. It looks like my class last year, we just added an extra. Now, title of chapter 12 is A Spool of Thread. I want you right now at home to make a prediction for chapter 12. I want you to tell me what you think is going to happen in chapter 12 before I go to my rocking chair to read to you. Now, please don't laugh. You know, Mrs. Sheppard is not the most artistic, but a spool looks kind of like this. And a spool, if you've ever seen it, is it's kind of like a cylinder shape. And ladies who sew, or people who sew, doesn't always have to be ladies. Violet, we know, likes to sew. She likes to mend. When people are sewing and they use thread, which is that little material, it looks kind of like string, but it's much, much thinner. When my mama used to sew when I was a little girl, people who sew use little spools of thread. It's a little container, and the thread just goes round and round the cylinder shaped container, kind of like that. So chapter 12 title is A Spool of Thread. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what a spool looked like. You might see if mom or dad or grandma, you might see if somebody at home might have a spool of thread that you could look at to give you a better idea. We're going to move right into chapter 12 in my rocking chair on the carpet. And this is where I need you to have those wide eyes and those big ears. The action is getting ready to really pick up in chapter 12, and I need you to be really good listeners. A spool of thread. Summer is almost over, said Henry in the barn. School will start soon. I smell fall. Now that's kind of like a vivid setting when it describes what it smells like as the seasons are changing. When you go outside, you can usually smell the changes in the seasons. And Henry said, I smell fall. Jessie laughed. I remember you saying the same thing about last spring, she said. And then it snowed. Remember the beginning of the book, we were just moving into spring. Now, chapter 12, we're getting ready to move into fall. I did say that, said Henry. And you stretched out your neck like Betty and said you smelled it too. Jessie stretched out her neck and smelled. I don't smell fall yet. I think there's more summer to go. Papa tooted his funny-sounding car horn for Mama. You know, sometimes when Mom or Dad, when they're in the car and they toot the horn, it gives you a signal that they're ready to go. Mama carried trays of cookies and biscuits out to the car to deliver. Remember, Mama's job is she bakes and she sells what she bakes at the market. Papa opened the door for her and set them on the back seat. We'll be back this afternoon, she called. Do you want anything in town, lambs? Henry and Jessie smiled at each other at the word lambs. Now, I'm inferring that Mama is calling the kids her lambs. Nothing for us, called Henry. I need some brown thread, please, called Violet. This is going to make you laugh. A dog, called Benny. Mama smiled her big smile. Papa waved. Violet says, I need some brown thread. Benny says, I need a dog. Take care of one another, called Mama. You know how to do that. And they were off. That illustration shows them being off in their car to town to deliver the baked goods to market. Waves of summer heat rose off the land. Henry and Jessie watched them over the big meadow. Beautiful, vivid setting describing what it looks like and what it feels like. No, not fall yet, Jessie said. Henry and Jessie took cool water to Betty and Boots. Now, when it's really hot, you have to give extra water to the farm animals. I could swim in a nice pond, said Henry. I could eat a nice sandwich, said Jessie. When they went inside, Violet was feeding Benny. Mama made fresh bread. 3 loaves, said Violet. Is there chocolate? Asked Benny. You wish for good things, Benny, said Jessie. I always wish for good things, said Benny. Even when they aren't there, said Violet with a smile. Let's go write a letter to William and Meg, Benny. You can draw a picture. Now, Mama had left them fresh bread. We're inferring that she had just baked, and there were 3 loaves, and they ate some of that bread for lunch. That bread is going to be a little bit important later in the story. I drew a picture of Betty, said Benny. Meg misses Betty. Henry grinned at Jessie when they were gone. Have you seen his Betty picture? He asked. Jessie shook her head. It is part horse, part cow, said Henry. Now, part horse, part cow is what Benny drew. I'm inferring Benny did that because Meg rode Betty the cow, kind of like a person might ride a horse. That's our Betty, said Jessie. There was the sound of a car in the driveway. Henry went to the window. Jess, it's Sheriff Bowen, Henry said slowly. The sheriff got out of the car. Reuben got out of the driver's side. Now, a sheriff and their neighbor Reuben, the sheriff and Reuben are getting out of the car. I'm wondering why the sheriff has come to Fairmeadow Farm. Something's wrong, said Henry in a low voice. You stay with Violet and Benny. Jessie looked out the window too. No, she said, I'll go out with you. Henry took a deep breath. Now he's already said he thinks, he feels something's wrong. Okay. They walked out of the door and across the yard. Hello, said Henry. Hello, Henry, said the sheriff. Jessie. His face was very still. Henry and Jessie looked at each other. They knew. Wonder what it means when it says they knew. They knew in that moment it was Reuben who told them, there's been an accident, he said. A bad accident. He touched Henry's whole arm. They are gone, said Reuben, beginning to cry. Henry didn't cry because Reuben was crying. Jessie made a small sound that caused Henry to reach for her hand. Sheriff Bowen cleared his throat as if it was hard to talk. Sometimes when a person is giving somebody bad news, sometimes when they get very, very emotional, it makes it hard to talk. I'm thinking the sheriff is having a hard time talking because he's having to give them this bad news. It was a car accident, he said. A truck went through a stop sign. His voice trailed off. Now, the sheriff and Reuben have just told Henry and Jessie that there has been a bad car accident, and he says they're gone. I'm inferring as a reader that Mama and Papa were in a really bad car accident, and when it says they're gone, I'm inferring that they were killed in that car accident. Someone has to take care of you, he said. Henry looked quickly at him. What do you mean? A relative, said Sheriff Bowen. A family member. You must have someone. Jessie and Henry didn't say anything. Now, Sheriff Bowen, because Henry, Jessie, Violet, and Benny are kids, they're children, Sheriff Bowen says, according to the law, somebody has to take care of you, and it has to be a relative. A relative is a person who is in your family. Somebody who is a family member. Otherwise, Sheriff Bowen stopped for a moment. Otherwise, Tom, said Reuben, we'll solve this without that. I can stay with them. So Sheriff Bowen says, somebody has to take care of you. It has to be a relative. Otherwise, and the sheriff didn't finish his sentence, and Reuben jumped in and said, I can stay with them. I'll take care of them. You're not family, Reuben, said Sheriff Bowen. The court wants family. Sheriff is saying, according to the law, Reuben, you can't stay with them because the court, the law, when kids have no mother and father to take care of them, the court, the law, wants a family member to take care of them. And he's saying, Reuben, you can't stay with them. You're not a relative. You're not a family member. Belle and I will stay with them, said Reuben in a strong voice. Wait, Henry said softly. A little wind came up. Jessie's hair blew against her cheek. We have a grandfather, said Henry. Jessie looked quickly at Henry. I'll contact him today, said Henry. We can do that for you, said the sheriff. What is his name? Where does he live? No, said Henry firmly. I want to do it. They are our parents. Sheriff Bowen sighed. All right then. I'll stop by tomorrow afternoon to make sure he's coming to get you. So Sheriff Bowen says, I'll talk to your grandfather. And Henry says, no, we'll do it. They were our parents. We'll talk to our grandfather and let him know we need somebody to take care of us. We'll watch over them tonight, said Reuben. The sheriff nodded and started to walk to his car, then turned. I'm awfully sorry, Jessie Henry. I am so, so sorry. His voice was soft. Thank you, said Jessie. Henry nodded. The sheriff reached into his pocket and walked back to them. I forgot. This was found in the front seat of the car. He handed Jessie a small object. It was a small spool of brown thread. Remember, Mama said before she left to go to town, she asked her little lambs if they needed anything. And Violet said, I need a brown spool of thread. So we can infer that the car accident happened after Mama and Papa had already been to town and they were on their way back home because Mama had already gotten Violet's brown spool of thread. Now, that little symbol means there's a little time lapse. The wind had stilled. The sun was over the far meadow. Reuben had gone home, promising to come back later with dinner. Jessie and Henry had watched him leave. He reached out over the fence to stroke Betty, then Boots. He looked back at them once. His eyes were sad and dark. And I'm trying to imagine right now how Jessie and Henry feel. Their parents just left to go to town just a few minutes ago. And then the sheriff and Reuben come and tell them there has been a really bad car accident. And all of this has happened so fast. What will we do? Whispered Jessie. She didn't know why she whispered. Maybe it was because all that had happened was too sad to talk about. We aren't calling grandfather, said Henry. But you said, Jessie began. I know. We need time. We can't rely on grandfather taking care of us. Even after what Papa said, that we would see him one day, Jessie asked. We don't know if he would want to take care of us now. We don't know him. Reuben can't take care of us, the law says. And Reuben can't take care of them because he's not a relative. He's not family. Henry just said, we're not calling grandfather. He told the sheriff he would call grandfather. Now he tells Jesse, we're not calling grandfather. Henry looked at Jesse, and I don't want to think about what the sheriff meant by otherwise, and Reuben wouldn't let him say. Do you know what he meant? Asked Jesse. Henry nodded. The children's home, he said, for orphans. Jesse stared at him. Now sometimes when kids don't have any parents to take care of them, sometimes kids are sent to a children's home. So Henry thinks that Sheriff Bowen meant if they couldn't find a relative to take care of them, then the kids would have to go to a children's home, which is a home for kids who don't have parents to take care of them. We have to take care of ourselves, Henry said. We know how to do that. Remember, Mama said. Henry's voice cracked a bit. I think Henry's voice cracked because he's getting upset. He's very, very emotional. Jesse thought for a moment. We're going to leave, said Jess. Yes. Slowly they walked to the house. Suddenly, Jesse stopped. Now I wonder what Jess means when she says, we're going to leave, and Henry says, yes. I wonder if that means maybe they're thinking about running away so they don't have to go to a children's home. Suddenly Jesse stopped. What? Said Henry. We have to tell Violet and Benny, said Jesse, beginning to cry for the very first time. Now Jesse and Henry know their parents have been killed in a bad car accident, but Jesse and Henry know, but Violet and Benny don't yet know. So Jesse and Henry, I'm thinking, are going to be the ones to have to tell Violet and Benny the bad news. Now let's go to our summary for chapter 12. And there was a lot that happened in chapter 12. So as we summarize, we're looking at the most important things from the chapter. And chapter 12 to me was a very, very sad chapter. But the first time I read this book, I was also, as a reader, very shocked that everything that happened in chapter 12. Read with me from home. Mama and Papa went to the market to sell the cookies and biscuits. Violet asked them to bring her a brown spool of thread. Reuben and the sheriff came to tell the kids that Mama and Papa had died in a car accident. The sheriff said they must stay with relatives or else. Henry said they could stay with their grandfather. Henry and Jesse came up with a plan to run away before the sheriff came back the next day. Remember, Mom and Papa were on the way to market. Violet said, please bring me a brown spool of thread. Reuben and the sheriff came to tell that Mama and Papa had been killed in a car accident. The sheriff said they must stay with relatives or else. Now, he didn't say, but Henry thinks that means or else they'll have to go stay in a children's home. Henry said they could stay with their grandfather. He told Sheriff Bowen that, but I think he really didn't mean it. He just told Sheriff Bowen that to give him and Jesse time to think about a plan of what they were going to do. Henry and Jesse came up with a plan to run away before the sheriff came back the next day. Now that was a lot of information to take in chapter 12. AT12, another title for chapter 12 would be the car accident. And the tone or the mood of that chapter, to me the circus chapter was a fun chapter. I laughed and it was exciting. The tone or the mood of chapter 12 is very, very serious, very, very sad, and to me, it was very, very unexpected. I wasn't expecting all of that to happen in chapter 12. Now that is the end of chapter 12. We have 2 more chapters. The next 2 chapters are going to show us what happens next. This is a good stopping point for today. This would be a good time at home for you to take a break, good time at home for you to move into reading groups or to move into another one of your lessons for today. That wraps up chapter 12.